student of the economics department, and I believe it was political science department who conducted a quiz and debate competition many years back. It's safe to say that we have both become what society considers successful in their own field. So I owe it to JBAS for giving me yet another opportunity for, polishing my skills or gaining that confidence. It was in that big auditorium that I remember. It was a really nice auditorium, and there were quiz masters who came from outside. And I think it was during October month or something like that. Maybe we can check. I still have those pictures with me, very fond memories. So I'm really happy to be back here. Such a nice, reputed college with a lot of history. My aunts studied here, so they're almost like well into their kids are in college now. So you can imagine the legacy that goes behind such a prestigious institute. So all of you should be very happy and proud that you are a part of JBAS, and you should think of ways in which you can make your institution and your parents proud, and create legacies once you leave. So standing here in front of you today, what I would like to share is, give you a few insights into what your career can look like if you pursue the civil services. Sure, ma'am. Sure. If you pursue the civil services, what can the potential impact that you can create on the people, how to go about writing the civil service examination, what are the basic requirements, what is the basic procedure or steps that are involved in the civil service examination. So it's just a very cursory primary introduction into the whole process. I hope whoever is interested in the audience can get more knowledge on that, probably ask me a few doubts that come across. And for those who have no idea, I hope this serves as a good introduction or a primer to the civil services, and possibly pique your interest in the same, and you all strive towards the examination. To be honest, being in college is the best place to start thinking, to start preparing, or to kind of design your life in such a way that you can pursue a career, become a high ranking government official, be it in the IAS, IRS, IPS, or Indian Foreign Services. So without further ado, I'll just start my very short presentation. Don't worry, there's nothing to read, just a few bunch of pictures and a few points. So I won't bore you with a lot of content, but I hope to keep things interesting. School audience, so might be at times it might be seem a little basic, but nevertheless it's still good for any beginner into the civil service. So let's take a look at the first few slides. Yeah. Okay, what is the civil service examination? So the UPSC Civil Service, as many of you may have heard, it's called the mother of all examinations. It's easily the most prestigious. Lakhs of students write the exam. Close to 10 lakh aspirants apply and appear for the examinations, and less than 1,000 people are selected every year. So just in terms of the selection rate, it's less than 1%. So all of these stats and figures might seem like a little daunting, but if you are preparing in the right way and if you have the right mindset, it's nothing unachievable. And that's what I would like to debunk, especially for someone. If you might be thinking like, how can someone from my college or someone from my kind of background, how can they ever clear it? I'm here to tell you that no matter what your background, no matter what your what your parents did, or no matter where you went to school, everyone has an equal chance to clear the examination. And provided that you already secured your seats in a highly prestigious and a good college known for its rigor and syllabus, it's going to be a good shot for all of you there. So this exam gives you a chance to make a difference in society. So every day, as far as I'm concerned, I'm Deputy Commissioner of IT, and on a daily basis, I interact with, 20, 25 citizens from around your society. I help solve their problems, like real problems. Sometimes people will come, they'll be crying, they'll be in their tears, but we will be able to really help them out in so many ways and really make a difference to society. On an individual basis and on a macro level, you are helping your country grow. That is, you are collecting the resources. As an IRS officer, you are the one who are collecting. And that's just one aspect of being an IRS officer. Of course, you can be a part of important government institutions, become secretaries, like become Secretary of Finance, Secretary of Education. Like the whole world is your oyster when you enter the civil service, not just IRS, any service for that matter. There are 24 services. Once you enter, you have opportunity to go for deputations beyond what is your parent cadre. It doesn't mean I will forever be doing income tax. I can join any ministry, I can join in any department, be it in the state government or the union government, and play a very, very active role in policy making. So within my short span, I was member of the committee for drafting the new income tax bill. So can you imagine the implication of that? So there was a national committee, there were officers recruited from the entire country, and I was one among the members. So what I suggested is now a law, and that law impacts the billions of Indians, and in fact outside, it affects businesses and citizens all over the world. So that is the level of impact, and to be honest, those are one of the most satisfying and impactful work that you can do. So your ideas have already, I can say with pride that my idea has become a law that affects millions of people in the country and businesses. So that's one of the best parts of being a civil servant. So these are some examples I got from the internet. IPS officer rescued people from bonded labor. River was revived by an IS officer. IFS officer, the Forest Service officer, helped protect acres in forest and protect the climate and prevent climate change. And then they are helping women earn sustainable livelihoods. So these are just, when you type IAS or IPS positive stories, these are the kind of headlines that pop up. And when you see the kind of impact they've had on people, it's truly worth emulating. This is, anyone knows who this person is? Anyone? Have you seen her? Yeah? So as political science students, you should really know who she is. So she is India's permanent representative to the United Nations, correct. So this is Ruchira Kamboj. She is an IFS officer, very senior officer. So she is India's voice at all these United Nations and all these important multilateral institutes. So when I was in college, I was really fascinated by IFS. Because you have these MUNs, right? You've gone for MUNs, many such programs, Model United Nations, like how you had a youth parliament. They have these MUNs. So when I was in Stella, I used to go for these Model UN programs, and I used to wish, okay, what it would be like to actually represent your country at these institutes. And that's something that I can potentially do. In fact, one of my batchmates, he's my same batch, he did excellent job in, regarding cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. So he did a very important case and discovered a lot of illegal money that was made. So he was chosen to represent India at OECD. You know OECD, right? It's a multilateral. So he was in Paris and he represented India and spoke about cryptocurrency taxation. I mean, it's a little technical, but basically that's what happens. So if you enter the civil service, like even the world becomes your oyster after a while if you really prove yourself. All right, next slide. Yeah, and this is, as you all know, a foreign minister. He was also a bureaucrat. He was also in the Indian Foreign Service. So just a few examples I've taken. So even after a successful career in the civil service, you can go on to become minister and union ministers. Next slide, please. So let's get into the structure of the examination. So first, the exam has 3 stages, which is first one as prelims, which is an objective type 2 papers It has general studies as well as CSAT. So general studies paper is again a 3-hour paper which has multiple choice questions, mostly relating to current affairs, general knowledge, and GS. So it has a structure, even though it says general, it covers all the subjects you can possibly think of: history, geography, economics, environment studies, political science, polity, Indian constitution, so on and so forth. So it has a vast syllabus, but it is more or less definitive, and if you prepare, you can easily crack that. CSAT is a qualifying paper which has basic mathematics, logic, and English comprehension. So you just have to clear it. You don't have to get a high score in that. Just to show that you are capable of doing basic math and understanding basic English. So that is CSAT. So once you clear that, so out of 10 lakh students, not 10 lakh, maybe out of 10 lakh, let's say 5 lakh are serious aspirants. Yeah. Sometimes people will just go and write it, right? They'll just, they won't prepare properly and they'll just go register for the exam and waste an attempt just like that. So let's say 5 lakh are serious aspirants. Out of those 5 lakh, around 10,000 are selected to write mains. So mains again is a completely written exam. It has 9 papers, which includes essay, general studies, and optional subjects. So essay, as the name suggests, you have to write an essay, and it can be general topics like climate change, women empowerment, or how to solve for corruption in the society, things like that. So, usual stuff. Or it can even be, nowadays they're even trying philosophical topics also, like what is integrity, what does it mean to be honest. So in the mains, they try to test you as an individual that you are, because we have a paper on ethics. So as you can imagine, being a public servant means you are kept in a position of a lot of power, and with that power comes a lot of responsibility, and it's important that civil servants are held to a high moral standards, because you have a lot of resources at your disposal. It's important that you don't misuse them or fall prey to corruption and so on and so forth. So there is a paper called Ethics to test your moral compass in whatever way it can be tested. And then you have something called optional, and this is a very, very important subject. And I want specifically all of you to pay more attention to this. So optional subject is something that kind of makes or breaks your mains examination. For optional, you can choose from any subject like political science, economics, English literature, Tamil literature, Urdu, Hindi, anything. If you are an engineering student, they take up engineering. They take geography. All these are very common. I'm sure he can talk more about it also from the academy. So I did my UG in economics. So since especially it was my first attempt, I thought I'll take economics as my optional. It was, looking back, I cleared, so it's good. But economics is slightly unpopular because slightly on the tougher side, and it covers up to UG syllabus. But the most successful candidates come from political science. One of the most successful candidates come from political science and sociology also. So even if you're in economics, don't lose heart. You can still study sociology in 3 months and you can clear. Or you can still study political science within 6 months and you can clear the syllabus. Why I discourage a little bit economics is because there's not enough faculty to guide you. That is actually the very practical reason, because you need to constantly keep preparing, writing exams, and you need someone to constantly guide you. So somehow, anyway, I had one professor in Delhi, and we used to, online, I used to send my answers. So it was less than ideal, but somehow, thanks to God, I cleared. Anyway, that's a different matter. But the point being, why I stress on this is because I am, like you, humanities student. And I feel like humanities students or people from humanities or arts or even science background are best positioned to clear the civil service examination, right? Because you already have, all the humanities mindset, how to think like an economist or how to think like a political scientist. And majority of what you study in college is what comes in your mains, your general studies, right? So what you study in political science is coming in GS 1 and 2 papers, because it talks about polity of India, it talks about the constitution of India. Questions will be asked about Indian history and international relations, which I'm sure you cover in political science, right? So a lot of your syllabus is already covered. You already have a background of that. Now you compare it with an engineering student who has not learned any kind of humanities. They have to learn everything from scratch, all the topics for all the 3 stages of exam. So that is why I'm again telling students with a background in political science or economics or even sciences are very well positioned to clear the civil service examination, and we should do it also to break the engineering hegemony, right? Engineering students dominate everywhere. That should not be the case, because we bring a unique mindset, our ideas and the things, our principles and your moral compass are, I believe, at a much better and highly positioned to be in good places where you can do good to the society. All right. So, like I said, optionals are something, if you are an aspirant right now, you should start to seriously think about what optional will you take. All right. So, these are some questions to ponder over right now. You can think about whether you're going to take PSIR or economics or sociology or Tamil literature, Hindi or Urdu, whatever it is your language. So, if you pick an optional right now, and if you are planning to give civil service examination immediately after you graduate, it is now a good time to start planning. All right. And finally, you come to the last stage of the exam, which is interview. So out of around 10,000 to 15,000 students who write mains, about 2,500 students are called for interview. And the interview happens in New Delhi at the UPSC Bhavan, Dolpur House, as it's called. And it's basically a personality test. And for that, I would say there is no one way to prepare for it. In a way, you prepare for it your entire life, right? Because it's about how you present yourself, how well you can, convey your ideas, how well you can convey your thoughts, how well can you communicate with the person who's sitting in front of you. And the interview panel will be highly experienced bureaucrats. They, more than your knowledge, what they test for is what you are as an individual, whether you can be molded into a good civil servant. They don't expect you to behave like a civil servant already. They'll just look at how well you're malleable, your integrity, whether you can be an honest person, and whether you can be full of integrity and probity and all those basic skills. So for interview, I would suggest that, this is the right time to get yourself prepared, boost your confidence if you feel like, you're afraid of public speaking, or if you feel like you're afraid to talk to someone who asks you a question. The time in your college should be best motivated or best used to improve upon those skills. Yeah? I'm sure people at the back can hear me, right? Yeah? So how will you, as a college student, how can you improve your communication skills? Any ideas? Any suggestions? From the back, how can you improve your communication skills while you're in college? Anyone? Yeah. What about you guys? How can you improve? Debates. Yeah, debate is a good option. Any language. And I'm not saying you have to speak only in English. Nothing like that. In fact, you can do your interview in your mother tongue. You can do it in Hindi. You can do it in Tamil. There will be a translator. The thing is, whatever language it is that you are comfortable in, you should be able to communicate with confidence, with assertiveness. And with that basic thing, the interview panel will be like, okay, this person can hold on to what they are they can stand up for themselves also. So your time in college should be best utilized. And I don't mean just debates, by the way. Being class monitor, being, a group leader for a project, all of these involves improving upon your basic interpersonal skills and your communication skills. So make use of every opportunity that, JBAS has to offer, be it taking up leadership roles as a class rep or as a house rep, group project leader, anything. And of course, go for every competition that you can find in and around Chennai, not just JBAS. So when I was in Stella, I spent half the time outside. Like, I was rarely in class. So we used to just go, and teachers used to give on duty for me, and then somehow that managed with the attendance and all. So that's how I came to JBAS. If I was not, I've covered almost all the colleges while I was studying here. And that was a really, really good experience for me and helped me, gain the confidence and learn how to speak properly. When I came, my communication skills was not good, to be very honest, because I come from a small town in Kerala and we speak only Malayalam. English is hardly ever spoken there. But Chennai, you have a multicultural crowd, right? You have people from all over the city or sometimes even all over the country. You have people from other states also. So English speaking becomes almost a necessity. And all my friends in Stella Maris, they came from city schools who went to like very prestigious schools also. So speaking with them, interacting with them, obviously improved my confidence. When I came first day, of course, it was bad. But by the end of third year, I could really brush up and improve my speaking skills. So I would really encourage all of you to invest time on that, consciously take actions that will help improve your personality. Also, like, take part in everything, sports, anything for that matter. It's not just related to soft skills. If you can gain leadership by being active in sports, by cultivating any other hobby, be it art, dance, music, anything. And for personality, it's about creating well-roundedness in your profile. So when the interviewer sees your profile, even if you were not topper, if you're topper in 10th and 12th, okay, fine, topper is normal, like they get toppers all the time, right? Because you have to sit and study. But more than being a topper, they look at your co-curriculars, they look at your extracurriculars. What have you done? Have you done any volunteer? Any NSS volunteers here? Good. So they look at NSS or NCC, anything for that matter. So you have to make sure that you do things outside of what is normally expected of you as a student. I mean, as a student, you have to study. But beyond that, what have you done? Apart from Instagram reels also. Sorry, no offense, but maybe, do something beyond all these things. That will really help create a good profile. Constantly keep thinking about your profile as a student and see how you can add more dimensions. And once you're out of college, you lose your time. You don't have a space to do that once you start working or anything, because officers don't care about your personality. They just want to get the work done. But college, they care about you. All right? Yeah, I'm sure you've watched this movie. It was pretty popular back in the day. The thing is, if you clear one stage and if you don't make it to the next, the problem with civil services, you have to start all over again. So I just want to give that as a kind of like a warning. But up to 2 or 3 attempts, I'm sure it's something worth giving. After your second attempt, you may have to reevaluate your choices and have backup. Of course, that's my personal philosophy. Anyway, yeah. You're going back? Okay. These are some sample questions. Quiz time. Anyone wants to take a shot? See, I did this for school students, okay? And they answered. So now if you don't answer, it's going to look very, very bad. So do something, and I need answers for this. Guesses. Okay. Yeah. The rest are not renewable. Next. That's correct. Good job. Excellent. Very good. Geography question maybe? Northeast or northwest? Sure. Which state it is located? Very good. Next. B. D for? Okay, great. So this is D. So now something from basic economics. What is this? Excellent. Next question. I think that's it. Okay, this is a slightly different format. You want to take a shot? Read carefully and give me an answer. Actually, I don't remember. Which is the following a cause of acid rain? Carbon monoxide, yes. Nitrogen oxide, not sure. Yeah, I think it's 1, 3, and 4. Because nitrogen, but when it's oxidized, I think science teachers should help me on this. I'm also a little confused. So, a lot of questions. Now, I mean, the first questions were very easy. That used to be the case a few years ago, but now the questions are getting more and more tricky. So, this is an example of, this is a proper representation of what a prelims question will be. Because the options will be complicated like this. It won't be straightforward. If it is A, B, C option, easy one, you just have to check. Even if you do inky ponky, you will get something. But this, you have to really, really think. You will be sure of one option, but you won't be sure of the next. So it's about elimination method and it's about how to actually arrive at the most suitable answer. So even if you're not really sure of one of the option, you have to use some guesstimation and you have to use your judgment. It won't be from your knowledge. Trust me, it's not about knowledge. It's about how you use your existing options to come with the most suitable answer. Let's move on to the next. So these are some of the mains questions. Actually, mains questions are from the recent mains. The world is facing an acute shortage of clean and safe fresh water. What are the alternative technologies which can solve this crisis? Discuss any of these technologies citing their key merits and demerits. So this is a typical mains question, and this is from GS3, which has economics and environment and all of that. So you have to answer in 250 words. So how will you answer in 250 words? Yeah? What is the alternative to solve water crisis? See, these are like very general, right? We know there is a water shortage. Give me one example of how to solve water shortage. Exactly. So rainwater harvesting. It's a very basic thing. It's not like you have to have PhD in geotechnology or geomorphology to be able to answer. It's about you have to know basics about every topic that is there, every topic that influences or impacts the society. Next question is from history. How has the Industrial Revolution in England responsible for decline of handicrafts in India? See, this is again, you have to critically analyze a portion from the history of the world and link it to how it has impacted your cottage industries or this thing in India. So this is yet another example. Next question. Industrial pollution of river is a significant environment issue in India. Discuss the various mitigation measures and the government's initiatives in this regard. So now at this point, without preparation, you can't write. You don't know what are the government initiatives that has been done. Like there are schemes like Namami Gange program. There's World Bank programs on water conservation in India. So all these things you have to really prepare. You have to learn about government schemes. You have to learn about international schemes. You have to understand what are the global best practices. Like tell about a country which has done very well in solving water crisis or problems. So you can think about nations like Israel. It's a nation known for it's a nation in a lot of water crisis, but they have some good technologies. Then you have Netherlands that has solved water flooding problems. They have renewable energy. So you have to take good examples from other countries. This is basically what a politician or someone else does. Like Tamil Nadu government is a big example of going to other countries and taking the best practices. Implementation, I mean, it's up for discussion, but at least they try, right? So you as civil servants or you future policymakers, you must display that you know such good ideas that can be implemented, because that is what you will be doing once you occupy these positions. Every day you will be solving a problem. Like in my office, I'm like tired of solving problems every day. Like by the time I go home, I'm like, I can't use my brain anymore. Even if my my mother-in-law, she asked me, what do you want for dinner? I'm like, I can't choose. Just give me something, because you are so much fatigued by making decisions every day. And decision making is very, very fatiguing, right? It's very, very tiring. So that is basically what you do on a day-to-day basis. Let's move on. So you got a good idea about mains questions, right? So like that, you will have questions on all the other topics: economics, political science, polity, then Indian art and culture, history, society, gender. Gender is a very, very important topic for civil service. And as a woman, you should be all the more prepared to face questions on gender, women empowerment, how to empower women, how to improve the lives of women. So these are some sample interview questions. Why do you want to join the civil service? What are the major issues in your district or your hometown? So this is something that they really always go behind. So when they see your profile, they know that, okay, you are from this town, like you are from Velur or you are from Kadalur. You could, I mean, you need not be from Chennai, right? So they'll be like, what are the problems in Kadalur district? Or what are the problems in your particular hometown? Like I was from Guruvayur, this town, I don't know how many of you have heard of it. It's a famous temple town. So I have to prepare properly regarding my hometown, not just your home state. And then I prepared on my home state, which is Kerala. What are the issues Kerala is facing? Like Kerala has a lot of issues, be it like environmental issues, a lot of landslides, and all these problems are having. What is Kerala famous for? Like tourism, how to improve tourism. Likewise for Tamil Nadu, what are the good things Tamil Nadu is getting right? Like industrial development is excellent in Tamil Nadu, but it also falls behind on so many other issues. So what are the issues Tamil Nadu is facing? Likewise, you have to go from each level. I mean, India, though, definitely you will do as a basic preparation. But beyond that, you have to go back and see your roots. And how do you promote gender equality and women's empowerment? How can technology be leveraged to enhance transparency? And of course, lastly, what are your hobbies? I was asked about my hobbies. So if your hobby is watching reels, do you think it will be good? It will look good. So all of you, my request is have a real hobby, like something. Have something cultivated during your college time, anything for that matter. Cooking, like my friends will give cooking. Sometimes they'll think, okay, we can say some random hobby and escape. But the board has known to ask things like, okay, tell me the recipe for. So that has also happened. So you can't fool your way, even for hobbies. They will hold you accountable for each and everything, because it shows a lot about the kind of person you are. It shows about your character. It shows that you care about something and you worked towards it and you devoted a certain amount of time for cultivating that hobby. So please, that's my humble request. The world is facing a death of hobbies. So please revive it. And reels is not a hobby, it doesn't count. All right? So please make me proud. So next, I'll just quickly, show you a few pics. I think that's it. Any technical doubts? I would like to go for my personal things, and we'll wind it up in maybe 5 to 10 more minutes. Any questions regarding the exam?
Good morning, ma'am. I'm Asin from second year political science, and I'm asking a question about regarding the presence of mind and the creative thinking. So nowadays we have a lot of advanced technology like artificial intelligence, AI, ChatGPT, and so on. So if we want any help, we immediately seek the help from the ChatGPT and Google. We don't use our creative thinking. So because of that, most of us we are not able to use our creative thinking and the presence of mind. But both these qualities seem very significant to clear the civil service examinations. So what to do to enhance our presence of mind and the creative thinking?
Which I didn't face, but I'm facing right now. And it's a very real problem. That is, I use ChatGPT a lot. Needless to say, you can sit. I think, yeah. So yeah, now I really understand being a college student is very easy because you have ChatGPT for anything and everything, right? It's like it's magic, to be honest, like nothing short of that. Because I was a college student before ChatGPT was a thing. Now I use ChatGPT Pro daily, like for anything. I don't use Google anymore for any questions, anything for that matter. If I want to draft something, if I want to look up any, like we have a lot of legal issues that keep coming up. So to research about law and case laws, so I use ChatGPT a lot. So, so here's the thing, right? I am very pro ChatGPT, and as far as students, for even for school students, like my nieces, they're in sixth standard, fifth standard, they are also using ChatGPT. So my very balanced take is use it, definitely use it as much as you can, because that is the future. And if you are completely shutting it out, that is not a good idea, because everybody in the world is using it. So use it, but use it judiciously. When your teacher gives you an assignment and it's an essay on, okay, how can you improve women empowerment in India, use your brain first, write the essay first on your own, in your own words. Then, after you've written first or second or third draft, after your third draft, refer ChatGPT, but keep the originality of your own words, your own voice, and your thoughts. Don't make it polished with ChatGPT, because the whole point of college is that you learn these skills, not just about getting the highest marks. And to be honest, teachers are also very smart. They will also know if ChatGPT wrote it or you wrote it, right, ma'am? There are very lot of very easy indicators. Like ChatGPT has a certain words. I can't tell you the secret, because then you will try to do that. There are many, checking. There are many mechanisms to check if it's written by ChatGPT or not. So use it to research. For research, use it. I'm not saying go to library, because I didn't do that. So I don't expect you to do that all the time. But occasionally and all, you can go to the library also and do your work there. But for research, use ChatGPT. If something involves writing, putting down your own thoughts, kindly use your own words, use your own thoughts, because after a while you will lose it. If you don't use it, you lose it, right? If you don't use your creativity, or if you don't use it to write your own way, then to be honest, you will automatically lose it. So you have to take, as college students, you have to take a very, very conscious decision. ChatGPT is excellent for UPSC preparation, but also think about the fact that it hallucinates, which means it can throw up fake results. It can throw up fake facts. So be very conscious of that. Everybody is prone to such errors, but I would just say be cautious and actively use it for research, but always cross check what the ChatGPT is suggesting. So you can use websites like Perplexity AI. Have you heard of it? Yeah. So Perplexity gives links to their citation. So you can go and cross verify if it is correct or not. So at least do that. All right. So I hope that answers your question. It's great for your preparation, because preparation means you have to study. In the end, you have to actually write the exam. Writing time, there's no ChatGPT to help you. So you have to practice writing on your own. All right. So we used to, even back before the era of ChatGPT, we used to spend hours practicing answer writing. So that's something you have to do for your speed and for checking your knowledge also. All right. So you have a question? Sorry.
To do law after BA Economics. Why did you do so? And then how did you get into NLU? One of the NLUs.
So you can take your seat. Take your seat, yeah. This I did law after becoming a civil servant. So this was part of our training. So one of the perks of being a civil servant is you get access to all these top law colleges. So I did my BA. Then after BA economics, I started preparing. Then I cleared in first year. Then after I did my law 2 years back. as a civil servant. So we attended some classes as a part of our training, and I got an MA in taxation laws. It's not an LLB or an LLM, it's an MA, but still it was one of the best experiences. Yeah, and it was for free. Yeah, the government paid for it.
The prelims and mains perspective, can you elaborate on how to groom your personality when you can go in person and face the panel members? And can you share the experience, the mindset of yours when you stepped out of the interview? Thank you.
Tend to read NCRTs because the same thing we are going to read in prelims and main syllabus.
And what you do, especially during your college time. Because I went right after college, right? Within 1 or 2 years, my interview and all of that came up. So practice really well speaking. Speak, you will fail initially, you will be made fun of by your classmates. It doesn't matter. Practice speaking in the language of your choice, be it Tamil, be it English. But to be fair, English is better because, us being South Indians, it's English is mostly our way to communicate, especially if you're in a national service. So practice speaking English. That's the most realistic advice I can give you, and gain your confidence. And that's what you really need to go before the interview panel. My interview was very cordial. It's not like what they show in that reels and all. In that is too much. They tend to hype it up so much. They ask very gentle. They're very nice to you. They'll make sure you're comfortable. Mine was Sujata, ma'am Sujata. She was a senior diplomat in Indian Foreign Service. I was mostly asked about my background in economics, which I answered. They asked some questions on that. Then the questions started getting tougher slowly by slowly. Then they start asking about some slightly politically charged questions. But you have to be very balanced. You have to give a very diplomatic answer. And these things you can practice. Doesn't matter. Even if you're not ready now, you can practice it, while you're preparing, and it'll be fine. Then I think one of you asked about my service. You asked about what? Service and NCRT. I'll come to that. Let's go to my journey. I have just a few pictures to show you. Next, this was my study table and all. This is us meeting the President of India. That's my batch photo. That's me in front of the Rashtrapati Bhavan. Next, Finance Minister. We had a round table with Finance Minister because I'm IRS, right? So she is ultimately my top boss. This is from the army attachment. So I spent a week with the Indian Army in Kashmir. We were staying in the army bunker near the border, and we could just see Pakistan from it was like right there, like this gallery kind of distance. So it was one of the most life-changing experiences. We learned how to fire weapons, and the whole time we were wearing this bulletproof jacket and traveling in an anti-mine vehicle, because Kashmir was a very sensitive area, and if you're with the army, you're more likely to be targeted because of the ongoing tensions which was happening there. But we got a really good idea about ground level, like what is happening in Kashmir, and it gave me a lot of perspective. So these were one of the best parts of training. And next, this is you get to travel a lot. That is me doing scuba diving in Andaman. And this is in Gujarat, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, Kevadia. Just something to, motivate you if this is the kind of thing that motivates you. Next. So now this is how to really, if you really want to pursue career in civil service, how can you do that? How can you start preparing, if you are serious aspirant right now, right? So first thing I would say is develop a habit of reading newspapers and magazines for current affairs. Newspaper should be a daily thing. When I was in college, I used to read newspapers very regularly, especially towards my second and third year, because I knew by third year I was sure that I was going to pursue this. So the newspaper, preferably the Hindu, every day. You should read the editorial pages also, whatever is written in the center pages. And I used to take notes at that time. You can use a digital note-taking app, or you can use a notebook, doesn't matter, but I would suggest use OneNote or Evernote or any note on your phone. Like I didn't even use my laptop. Whatever was there in my phone, whichever app was available, I used it to make notes. So to go one more level, what I would suggest is you look at your UPSC syllabus, main syllabus. In that you have GS 1, 2, 3, 4. Like that, you can organize your notes. So whatever you're reading from the newspaper, if you read something on environment, put it in GS3. If you're reading something on society or gender, put it in GS2 under those headings. So that is like Pro Max. So if you really want to do that, you can do that, and that will be really, really helpful if you are preparing, if you're planning to write in the coming years. Then practice making short notes. Yeah, that's what I mentioned. Improving your writing and answer presentation skills. You can practice it with your own, examinations. Always make sure you write in a good format. There's an introduction, body of the answer, conclusion. You can practice it with your own university or your, college exams. Use opportunities for leadership and competitions. I think I already covered this many times, so not going into it again. Build a strong foundation in subjects like history, geography, polity, economics, and basic science. By science, as you would have seen in the questions I had shown you, it's very basic science questions that get asked, 10th standard level. All of you have already covered it. So have a basic understanding in that. And to get that basic thing, what you need to do is study NCERT. So one of you asked me the importance of NCERT textbooks. So NCERT textbooks are the most fundamental resource for preparing for civil service examination. NCERT from 5th standard to 12th standard, all are important, especially history, geography and all. But till 10th, you can study science and you can study all the basic things. So if you can get the PDF of NCERT is available free online, you can get the PDF, you can read the PDF, make notes, make yourself familiar with all those books. And then once you are actively preparing, you can start making notes and, preparing. Because sometimes UPSC asks directly from the NCERT, like line by line they have asked. So that is how important NCERTs are for preparation. That's about it. Can you, that last in the hyperlink, can you copy it and then put it in a Chrome? All right, so that's it. Any final questions any of you are having? In front of the Honorable President of India, it was literally the high point of my training. So it was one of the best parts about being a civil servant. Yes, so I thought, I don't think speakers are connected.
Good morning, ma'am. And how to overcome our distraction? Distraction.
To be honest, you have to just avoid it. That's the right way to do it. So personally, even now, I am on Instagram and Twitter, but I don't keep the app on my phone. If I want it, if I want to see something, if my friend told I've posted this, go see, then I download and then I have to do it all over again. Or if I want to post something on Instagram, that's when I download it from the App Store and then I keep it on my phone, and within 1 or 2 days I delete it, because you can't help it. You'll spend the whole day scrolling. That's human nature. So if you are someone who is struggling with, managing these distractions, that's the only way to do it. Unfortunately, I've also tried many things, but finally this is the only thing that works. Even today, right now I'm not preparing for UPSC, but I still don't keep it daily because my work gets hampered, my mental health gets hampered, my sleep gets hampered. So use it, but the phone has disable option. It has like uninstall. So uninstall or deactivate it for a while. Maybe a few days of the week or a few days of the month, you can use it. When you're going for a trip or when you're out with friends, probably you can use it. But every day, the more you have it on your phone, the more likely you're going. And you are not to blame. It's the apps and technology is designed to make you hooked, so it's not your fault. So the only way is to like keep it like a hard stop. That's the only way that works. That's the main distraction, right? Any other distraction? All right, so that's I feel like the problem of our technology age. So that's the only way to go about it. Personally, that's the thing that worked for me. And to be honest, it's not the end of the world if you're not there or if, on social media. So get out of FOMO and try to focus on what really matters and use it when you really want to post something. So that way you don't feel like you're missing out.